Deep in Ecuador, the Andean cloud forest awakens in thick mist. Here, a shadowy giant stirs high in the dripping canopy above. Below her, early foragers navigate the treacherous, slippery forest floor. This is the spectacled bear, South America's only bear species. Her thick coat protects against the biting cold mountain air. The ground provides temporary sustenance, but it is deeply treacherous. Ambient life here relies entirely on the relentless, heavy moisture. She begins her daily search, investigating fallen timber for insects. She pays no attention to the tiny, fragile deer passing by. Her focus remains upward, drawn back toward the dense canopy. Tremarctos ornatus is highly adapted for a life of vertical climbing. Sharing this space requires respecting the delicate balance of the forest. Her muncular shoulders easily propel her massive weight directly upward. Specialized claws lock into the bark like steel mountaineering hooks. At 30 feet high, she momentarily checks her vulnerable blind spots. High above the danger, she finally reaches her primary food source. This ecosystem thrives on the specialized behaviors of its diverse residents. She targets the tender, nutrient-rich hearts hidden deep inside the bromeliads. It takes immense jaw strength to process this fibrous, tough vegetation. The discarded remains flutter down, providing resources for scavengers below. From this towering vantage point, the forest appears entirely limitless. But even here, crepuscular instincts keep her constantly on high alert. Smaller predators like the tyra pose absolutely no threat to her. Yet, an unexpected snap echoes from the dark slopes far below. She freezes instantly, blending perfectly into the heavy shadows and moss.
Finding new foraging grounds requires executing highly dangerous, acrobatic canopy crossings.
The surrounding biodiversity thrives entirely undisturbed by her immense, heavy presence. She cleverly distributes her tremendous weight by climbing completely upside down. With surprising grace, she secures a hold on the new tree. Safe on a solid platform, she sheds the heavy morning condensation. Morning vitality brings an aggressive drive to consume vast quantities of epiphytes. This relentless hunger fuels her arduous journey across the canopy roof. Her dexterity is unmatched, stripping tough vegetation with absolute, practiced precision. A subtle change in the wind carries a fresh, unfamiliar scent. She analyzes the dense, complex odors rising from the misty undergrowth. A mountain puma arrives, an apex predator demanding absolute spatial respect. She immediately retreats higher, where the heavy cat cannot safely follow. At this extreme height, she holds a vital, untouchable tactical advantage. exposed near the Canopy crown, she braves the fierce mountain winds. Once the threat passes below, she descends back into safer foliage. Traversing this immense vertical landscape demands an extraordinary expenditure of energy. Hidden dangers lurk quietly on every single surface of this world. Hydration is scavenged directly from the condensation trapped on waxy leaves. The relentless climb inevitably takes a severe toll on her stamina.
A brief moment of rest provides time for essential grooming behaviors.
As midday approaches, the rising humidity forces her to finally rest. Around her, smaller inhabitants continue their frantic search for daily calories. This temporary reprieve allows her muscles to recover from the climb. In the heart of the cloud forest, peace is always fleeting. Soon, the harsh midday elements will test her endurance once again. The brief rest ends as a chilling, dense fog swallows the canopy. Visibility drops instantly, leaving the forest shrouded in an absolute, ghostly silence. Grooming is essential to maintain the insulating properties of her thick coat. The relentless humidity permeates everything, adding heavy, freezing weight to her fur. She must keep moving, navigating this blinding, arboreal labyrinth entirely by memory. Descending is often far more dangerous than the initial vertical climb upward. The threat of sudden torrential rain constantly looms over this fragile ecosystem. One misstep on this slick, algae-covered bark could be entirely fatal. True survival here demands a perfect mastery of this highly vertical terrain. Reaching a solid, massive fork offers a crucial moment of absolute safety. Midday brings a suffocating, inescapable humidity that drains her remaining energy reserves. Even opportunistic hunters like the ocelot slow down in this punishing midday heat. She minimizes all physical exertion, waiting patiently for the air to cool. Every single drop of precious moisture is aggressively utilized for essential hydration. But true comfort remains entirely elusive during the harshest hours of midday. Hunger forces her to seek out hidden caches of untouched, nutrient-rich epiphytes.
She wastes absolutely no time breaking through the tough, defensive spiky exterior. The ambient microfauna remain totally indifferent to the heavy destruction occurring nearby.
Her flat molars are uniquely evolved to crush and process this tough vegetation. The discarded husks will eventually decompose, feeding the deep roots far below. High above the earth, she is totally isolated in a hazy void. Below, scavengers like the Andean fox track the debris falling from her path. A subtle shift in the shadows below immediately catches her sharp attention. She remains perfectly frozen, becoming completely invisible against the dark, wet timber. Satisfied the threat has passed, she resumes her grueling, endless horizontal journey. The dense cloud forest fights back, presenting an impenetrable wall of heavy vines. When agility entirely fails, she relies on sheer, devastating brute physical force. The dense thicket harbors incredibly ancient, hidden biodiversity within its dark shadows. Beneath the dense green facade, rotting timber presents a deadly, hidden trap. She finally breaks through, discovering a colossal, ancient giant of the forest. These giant bromeliads act as vital reservoirs, capturing precious, life-saving rainwater. Hydration is crucial to survive the punishing, relentless physical demands of migration. This tiny oasis briefly unites the absolute largest and smallest forest inhabitants. Fully refreshed, her brutal, exhausting struggle toward the upper canopy must continue. The path ahead is a treacherous, tangled nightmare of slick, rotting timber. Overcoming this final vertical obstacle requires pushing her muscles to absolute failure. Every single ounce of strength is dedicated to defying the crushing gravity. The surrounding avian life watches this brutal, exhausting display of raw power. With a final, agonizing heave, she secures a hold on the upper tier. The punishing midday ascent is finally over, demanding immediate and absolute recovery. As the harsh afternoon heat finally breaks, her immense vitality quickly returns. She must now begin searching for a structurally perfect, secure nesting location. The incredible verticality of this habitat separates the delicate from the truly powerful. Not every location possesses the vital structural integrity required to support her. Finally, her experienced eyes lock onto the absolute perfect architectural foundation. The final ascent to the canopy crown is executed with calculated precision. She rigorously stress tests the ancient branches, ensuring they can bear her load. In this highly complex ecosystem, life exists at absolutely every single elevation. Here, near the very top, the wood is far drier and infinitely stronger. Arriving at the absolute zenith, the monumental task of architectural construction begins. To survive the freezing night, she must build a massive platform nest. She purposefully half-snaps the live branches, ensuring they remain firmly attached. Her intense arboreal construction inevitably disrupts the surrounding, quieter canopy life. This forms a highly durable, interconnected base that locks into the tree. Her dexterity allows her to weave complex structural supports entirely by instinct. She tirelessly folds the surrounding environment inward, shaping a massive bowl. Out here, the ferocious mountain winds threaten to tear apart weak structures. She aggressively stomps the vegetation, compacting it into a solid, heavy mattress. The microfauna remain blissfully unaware of the monumental engineering happening nearby. Smaller, softer leaves are painstakingly harvested to line the harsh wooden interior. Reaching for the final materials requires balancing dangerously on the sheer edge.
Below her, the diurnal foragers begin their rapid descent toward shelter.
Soft moss acts as crucial insulation against the freezing mountain night.
Every gap must be meticulously sealed to trap her precious body heat.
Using her own massive bulk, she perfectly contours the nest's interior shape. The completed platform nest is a true marvel of arboreal engineering. Exhaustion finally overcomes her after 14 hours of relentless vertical migration. Far below, the heavy terrestrial wanderers inherit the darkening forest floor. She makes one final, minor adjustment for absolute, perfect sleeping comfort. This temporary fortress will keep her entirely safe from nocturnal predators. As twilight descends, the high Andes are painted in dusty, fading hues.
From her high throne, she commands a view of the darkening world. The heavy toll of the incredible daily migration is finally fully paid.
As she surrenders to sleep, the true nocturnal ecosystem abruptly awakens. Temperatures instantly plummet as the protective sun entirely disappears behind the mountains. The nest's incredible flexibility absorbs the violent, swaying force of the wind. Below, an apex predator discovers the ultimate futility of the vertical hunt. She acknowledges the mortal threat, but remains entirely, blissfully unconcerned. Her thick coat provides a vital, impenetrable barrier against the freezing night. Her immense metabolism finally slows, entering a state of absolute, deep recovery.
The night shift emerges, navigating the darkness with terrifying, silent precision.
Even in complete darkness, her iconic, spectacled markings remain faintly visible. The brutal tools of her survival finally rest for the long night. Deeply asleep, her finely tuned senses remain subconsciously connected to the forest. The signature mist of the cloud forest returns, aggressive and freezing cold. Her dense, specialized underfur successfully fights off the deadly plummeting temperatures. The relentless cycle of moisture ensures the ecosystem's survival for tomorrow. She is now entirely self-contained, a living furnace high above the earth. Her masterful architecture effortlessly withstands the immense fury of the Andes. The forest finally vanishes completely, swallowed by an impenetrable, ghostly shroud.
Within this blinding void, she rests completely invisible to the world. Down below, deadly nocturnal hunters prowl through the blinding, freezing dampness.
She ignores the biting cold, anchored by her profound, restorative sleep. The forest drinks in the heavy mist, preparing for tomorrow's dawn.
Tremarctos ornatus has successfully conquered another brutal day in the canopy.
The entire biodiversity of the high ecosystem finally rests in unison. This magnificent apex survivor remains perfectly adapted to this extreme world.
She will wake at dawn, and the arduous journey will begin again.
This is her kingdom, the majestic and unforgiving wild earth.